Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about you have completed a medical billing and coding program. How soon should you sit for the medical coding certification? If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay guys, to answer this question fully, you have to factor in a few things, okay? First, depending on how long your program, your medical billing and coding program is, that's going to play a big part of this. If you went through a fast-paced medical coding program, meaning that your program was 4 months or less or 6 months or less, that's really fast. Now, it's no knock on your intelligence or anything. It's just there's a lot to learn for medical billing and coding. We have to know what doctors know while never having gone to medical school. That's how serious this is. Now, don't let that scare you. Just let it prepare you. All right. So in your program, if you rush through your program and you don't feel confident, I recommend tacking on another 90 days after you've completed your program. 90 days is really good because this is a good enough time if you are studying 20 hours per week. It is possible, even if you have a full-time job and a family and kids to take care of, it is possible because you will make time for the things that are important to you. And you can figure out ways of putting in little bits of time, and all of those little bits of time add up. You do not have to be studying for more than 1 hour at a time. So that's just something that you all ought to know, okay? But that aside, if you feel prepared though, if you did really good to the program and you say, well, no, Blue, I really did really good. I went through a 9-month program or a year program, and I think I'm going to be ready for this test, then by all means, you take it as soon as you feel ready and you're off and running. So that's a really good thing. So if you want to take it a week after you finish your program, you are totally fine with that because it really all depends on you. So that being said, if you are on the fence because you feel like you didn't learn a lot, now that's something that's different. Sometimes people don't even know what certification they want to sit for once they complete a program. And so that's another problem too. There are 4 main medical coding certifications. All you need is one to start. You do not need a slew of them. You just need one. So the 4 main medical coding certifications that all employers are looking for: the CCS, the gold standard of medical coding credentials, the CCA, the CCSP, or the CPC. Any one of these 4, and you will be on your way to, doing great things. I've done plenty of videos about the differences in those credentials and what they mean. The thing about it is you have to decide on one and then start studying towards that. Now, the books that I recommend to study for the exams are in the description box below. I do not recommend a lot of the test prep guides, the actual test prep guides, because those questions are not going to be on the exam. Doesn't matter what exam that you're sitting for, okay? But the 2 books that I do recommend, the ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS Coding Handbook with the Answers, is from the American Hospital Association. Nellie Leon Chizen is the one who wrote that book. That link is in the description box below. And also the CPC study guide. Now, if you're taking a CCA or the CCS exam and you say, well, Blue, why would I want to use the CPC study guide? It's for the CPC. The CPC study guide covers all of the outpatient setting coding, so all the CPT coding. So it's a great practice. AAPC did a fantastic job with that book. And so I will always recommend books or products that are going to be beneficial to coders, because that's what I do. It doesn't matter where it came from. If it's good for coders, if they can learn from it, then it's all the more better. I do see that there are a lot of books out there that are written by people, and the information is kind of convoluted, and I just don't like the way that it's set up. So that's why I'm very adamant about the ones that I recommend. I've looked at all these other practice guides and study guides, and I'm just not impressed. Those 2 were the ones that I used to help me when I studied for my CCS and the CCSP. I took the CCSP first and then got it, and then I took the CCS. And so I did them both in the same year, and those were the ones that I used to help me study. Now, studying 20 hours per week It sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. And the reason that you do need to spend as much time studying is because you need speed. No matter which test you're taking, any one of those four, they're all going to be time-based tests. So if you are taking an AAPC exam, the CPC, you're going to have 2 minutes, 40 seconds per question. Now you may be thinking, that's not a lot of time. No, it isn't, but it is a lot of time compared to the AHEMA credentials, which you get roughly 2 minutes per question. Now that's going pretty fast. Now, not every question you're going to spend all that time on, so there's going to be some time where you're going to be able to, build up some of your time in between there on the things that you are able to answer quickly. And how do we answer things quickly? By practicing with the books. A lot of people think that they can just fly by and be like, oh, well, I learned process of elimination in school, so I know how to pass these tests. That's not going to help you in the real world. And sometimes even with, learning those process of elimination techniques, and that's how you get into the test, it's again still not going to help you. And it's not going to save you the entire test. It won't, because these tests are designed to test the competency of the individual. Okay, so make sure that you are doing your practice. There is no excuse for not practicing, and practicing frequently. Okay, 20 hours per week is doable, and I will always say 20 hours per week. No one has ever written me and said that it was not helpful to them, because people have told me, Blue, because of you and because you telling me to do the 20 hours per week, I was able to pass, because they had all that much more practice versus what they were doing at maybe 5 or maybe even 10 hours per week. Okay, and 5 hours per week is nothing. 10 hours per week, again, is nothing. It's got to be 20 hours. And this is not going to be forever, guys. So don't complain, okay? Those people that complain, oh, it's too much, this is going to be the rest of your life studying, right? Maybe not as intensely as right now, but for the rest of your life and the rest of your career, you will be studying, because you'll have continuing education units you have to do and take the classes for and everything. And then if you want to move up and maybe you want to get another credential later on in your career, that's going to require you to do some more studying as well. So get used to it. Okay, that's what we do. And for us fellow nerds that love this is a great thing, but this is something that you have to be expecting and be prepared for. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're out there and you're studying. But study 20 hours per week. Set a date for your exam. Don't just rely on, okay, I'll take it in 3 months. Look at the calendar, pick out a date, and then when you can, get to paying for it, so that way you can already have it paid for, and you know that that's the date that you've got to take that test. And there's no there's not going to be any excuse for you to be like, oh, pushing it off. And if you tell me, well, Blue, I don't have the money to pay for my exam. Guys, when you're taking these programs that you're going to have to pay for a certification exam. So there's plenty of time throughout your time in school for you to be saving up money, so that way you can have the money for your exam. Okay, I had to do that too. I had to pay a part of my exam fee because I was in a program, the WIA at the time. Now it's WIOA, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, is what I went through. But I did have to pay for a portion of my test. So I had to work, and I was working the whole time that I was in school as well. So if I can do it, I know that you all can do it, okay? It's about your goals and your priorities. But having that date and having it definitive, like, okay, I know I have 90 days. Okay, I know I have 70 days. I know I have 50 days. And you're getting closer and closer to that time. And meanwhile, you're keeping yourself, and you're still, practicing and stuff. You're going to be ready for that test. And it doesn't matter what you went through in the school, because the school time is over. If you went through a fast-paced program and you say you didn't learn, then you need to find a mentor or a tutor. And I say this in almost all my videos. Find a mentor or a tutor who can help you to understand what you're missing. Because the school sold you a product, and that's what they do. Schools sell products. They sell a lifestyle. They sell a dream. That's what they do. Because if you told adults what was in this field, you would have a lot of people not signing up. So that's the thing that you got to know. And I always try to tell people that, but sometimes people think that maybe I'm just trying to discourage them on purpose. No, I'm not. I'm trying to give you guys a reality. This is what the reality is, you know. So that being said, make sure that you are going to be ready. And by doing that continuous practicing, if you miss a week where you couldn't study for 20 hours that week because something happened and, you know, whatever, it's okay to pick it back up as soon as you can the next week. Okay? It's not a reason to give up. All right? That's the biggest thing. It's not a reason to give up. But again, find yourself a mentor or a tutor who can help you to understand it, because sometimes that's all you need is somebody to explain it to you. And working through the things that you don't quite understand is a discipline that you have to develop. When I was studying for the CCS, I had to really buckle down and study for that PCS side, because as an outpatient coder, all of my career, I just didn't have exposure or need to practice with that. And keep in mind too that PCS, ICD-10 PCS just came out in 2015. October 2015 was when it went live, right? So there was really no time to get all involved in that, right? And so then it was just a matter of me studying it. And so there was things in the book that I didn't understand. I've given my advice plenty of times on how I studied, where I used the Optum ICD-10 PCS book. And in the back, in Appendix M, like in Mary, there's a whole list of all of the procedures that you can look up. And that's exactly what I did. And that's exactly what built my speed. So it's all about speed, and it's all about recall. And it's also about making sure that you read those guidelines as well, okay? But getting practice on the PCS side through that appendix by looking up all of those procedures, and not just concentrating on, oh, I want to read a bunch of op notes. I want to read a bunch of op notes. If you can't spot like the diagnoses by themselves, you're certainly not going to be able to digest a whole op note. So get the practice on those procedures, those standalone procedures where they're just listing them and then you're looking through the book, right? Because again, that's going to give you lots of practice. And when you get around to the time that you are going to be like a week before your exam, I always say to take a week off. Don't even look at the books. Don't bother with the books. But some people don't trust me in that. You're not going to learn anything new in the few days before your exam. So you may as well take that time to give yourself a break and relax and just enjoy being with your family or your loved ones, and just know that it's going to be worth it. Whatever may happen on that exam is going to be worth it, because you did your best studying. You did all the time like you were supposed to. And you're taking this time off to rest 2 or 3 days at least. I tell people a week, but at least 2 or 3 days, right? If you don't want to go a whole week, at least 2 or 3 days. And then you're going to be so refreshed by the time you go in there to go take that test. You're going to be ready to rock and roll, okay? And there's some other things that you can do to prepare before you go for that test. If you're taking an AHEMA exam and you have to go to the Pearson View Center, make sure that you take a drive out there to check out where it is, so you know where to go. You're not going to be lost the day of your exam. I never understand people who do that. They don't know where they're going. I didn't do that. You know, I went and I made sure that I knew exactly where to find where I was going to go a couple of days before I took my test. And it was so much more relaxing because of it. And I made sure that I took a day off from work. I took 2 days off. So I took the day before my test, and I took the day of my test, obviously, off from work. And I did that because I wanted to isolate myself, and so that I didn't have any distractions. I didn't have anything on my mind, and I could be clear of all the things that I was even thinking about at the time. And so it was great because, of course, I went in there and I passed my test. So that's always a great thing. But it's just a matter of being disciplined and getting on practicing. There's no excuse for not practicing, folks. No excuse at all. And if you practice with a workbook. Sit there for 30 minutes and then go through and look at those, look at what you're supposed to look up, and then start looking it up, right? Or you're going to be listening to the guidelines for 30 minutes. Or if you're going to work on the workbook, of course, you can always do it for 1 hour. But at that 1 hour mark, you take a break and you stop at least for 15 minutes, because you need that time to kind of regroup. Because if you stay on the book past an hour, your brain's going to get tired. After 1 hour, your brain will get tired and it will stop functioning as far as like being able to remember what you did. So you want to make the most out of every minute that you are studying. And when you are thinking about it, you have to be deliberate with the time that you're spending studying. If you're not being deliberate with the time that you're studying, then obviously it's going to be for naught, right? And it's going to be like, you're just, what are you doing? You know, it's not going to stick anyway. So again, if you are getting stuck on something, it is okay to put a pin in it, because sometimes all you just need is a break from that particular question or whatever. And then when you come back to it with fresh eyes later, then you can see, okay, this is what I did, this is what I didn't do. Okay, this is where I went wrong. And I tell people too that on the questions that I didn't really know, as far as like for PCS when I was studying it, I would look up the answer and then I would reverse teach myself. So basically I would look at the answer and look at wherever it is in the tabular section, and then I would kind of like reverse on how did they find it in the index. And so I would look at it that way. And it made a world of difference, because then I was able to associate certain words. And while I would have loved to figure it out, there are some things that you're not going to always be able to figure out. But the more practice that you have with it, the better off you'll be. And there are hundreds of procedures in the back of that appendix. And that, going through that and practicing with those, you're going to get faster and faster. Because when I first started with that back appendix in that ICD-10 PCS book, oh, I was slow. I was really slow. I was like, my gosh, how am I going to get through this? But you don't want to get on that hamster wheel of panicking when you're studying. Okay, don't do that to yourself. Now, while you're studying, is the time to be slower, or to be more like, okay, we got to look at this, you know, in a way that like, okay, I got to maybe look at it from this angle, or maybe look at it from this angle. So that's the thing that you have to think about. Because if you get so on that hamster wheel of, oh, I'm going to be slow and I can't get at this, and what if I can't get a job? You're thinking too far ahead. That's too far ahead thinking, okay? You need to be present and in the now. So that way you could be, okay, this is what's going on. And this is, okay, now I'm ready. And when you walk into that room, oh, trust me, you will be ready, because you will have prepared yourself properly. And that's the thing, guys. You don't want to go in there not being properly set up. So properly set yourself up. And if you know that there's something that you're stuck on, again, reach out, find somebody to help you. Go to Google as well. Google has a lot of really great leads that you can look at. You know, you can always do that. If you are studying like your anatomy and things like that, and maybe you feel like, oh, I'm getting lost on this anatomy thing or whatever. Anatomy takes a while to build. It's not something that, you know, you're going to build overnight. Obviously, what we learn in school is the surface level of anatomy. The in-depth stuff will come in later, okay? So don't worry about that. And plus, if you're looking at your books, like I tell you all to, take a Saturday to look at each and every single page of your books. Literally open your books and do that, because it's going to get you familiar with where everything is at in the book. Okay, so that's the thing. That's going to be a big help for you, because I can't tell you how many letters and comments I get from people that tell me, Blue, when I got in the test room, I was so nervous because I forgot everything. I didn't know where anything was, and I hadn't been looking at my book, and I was regretting it, and then I ran out of time, and then I failed my test. And it's just like a slippery slope, guys. Don't do that to yourself. You know, just make sure that when you're taking the time to look through your book, that you're getting familiar with your book. These books need to be your best friend for the next 90 days while you're studying, okay? And don't push off that date. That's that exam test date, whatever you do. Do not push off that test date. because the more you try to push it off, and then all of a sudden, by the time you know it, it's going to be 6 months, a year later, and sometimes 2 years later, and then you will have not have taken the test, because then you'll have forgotten everything. Don't stop studying. Stick with that that test date. That's going to be your test date. It's go time on that day, and whatever happens, happens. But at the same time, just know that these tests, these medical coding tests, are very difficult to pass. Nurses fail these tests. Doctors fail these tests. People with advanced degrees that are not even related to medical coding or medical field at all, they fail these tests. So it does not matter what you think that you know as far as like coming in. While it helps, and while maybe you're a good student, you have to make sure that you know that this is something that's completely different. Medical coding is difficult. And again, not saying that to discourage y'all. I want folks to be prepared. That's at the end of the day, I want folks to be prepared. Now, there's some people who get upset about that. There's nothing that I can do other than, wish you luck, because again, if you are taking the time to study and practice, you're going to be good to go. If you don't, then you're going to see the results. And the results is going to be more of that test fear, more of those anxious feelings, because you didn't prepare like you should have. It's your responsibility, guys. And with responsibility comes a lot of rewards too as well. As long as you commit to it and you start working through it and you work past those feelings of inadequacy, you'll be fine. You're not going to get it overnight. It takes a few years sometimes to fully understand. I know it took me a while to get confident. It actually took me 6 years to be confident in what I was doing. Knowledgeable by 4 years, confident by 6. Okay. And by that 6th year, that's when it was just like, okay. And the light bulb goes on. So, and that's when I understood what I was doing. Okay. And so that's just what I want to share with all of you today. But that's my advice. If you want to take it right away after you finish your program, go for it. Because I think that's wonderful that you have taken the time to appropriately study throughout your program. If you need a little bit more time, nothing wrong with that. But look to be about 9 months. Look to be about 3 months, but no more than 5. Okay, if your program was super short, you can extend it to 5. Super short meaning, okay, 4 months. Then you can extend it to 5 months, okay, after your program. But you have to make sure that you've been studying that whole time and that you take your test by the end of that 5th month. So that way you can be ready and prepared. Now, if you have a voucher with the school that, will expire after a while, make sure that you take the test before the voucher expires. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be time to go. You got to make sure that you go for it. Don't waste anything. Don't waste anything from the school. Don't waste any of your resources, because it's not a waste of your time to get this test done. All right. And you got to get it done. And you may not feel confident and ready, but if you've been studying like you should, it'll show. I'm just saying. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.